Hello, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome back if you have. My intention is unity, oneness, and the highest levels of love light. I just wanted to give an energy update, and we'll start with that. I like to share some of the experiences that I have personally, because obviously we're all going through our own personal journey, and quite frequently when we're on this journey, if we consider ourselves, well, as a human, I consider myself a human being on the planet Earth. But we're also galactic. We also have our own personal past history. We have our own personal things going on. So we all have our own experiences. Yet at the same time, we are not alone in that. We're all going through something on an individual basis, together, right? So we had a huge influx of frequencies the last few weeks. I feel like that's kind of a constant. I feel that many of us have just gotten a little bit more used to it. Whereas a year ago, had these influxes come in, sometimes we get really sick. I would have gotten really sick. I would have been feeling high levels of anxiety. I might have been feeling, and again, if this is where you're at, and you're watching this video going, I did get really sick, or I am feeling high levels of anxiety, I invite you to watch a video I did called Physical Upgrades fairly recently, maybe a month back or so. And I talk a lot about the physical upgrades, and I think I share in that video some helpful solutions, I hope I did, to kind of work around those while our body is in the process of upgrading. When we get these huge influxes of energy, they came, I felt, from all over. Galactic, from the sun, from the earth, from our own consciousness expansion as a human collective, but also in my own personal experience. And so and this all affects the Schumann resonance also, our collective expansion is intricately interwoven with the earth, right? And so on and so forth. And so this can be very blissful. I had high moments of levels of creativity. I had quite a few aha moments. I'm still experiencing all this energetic influx right now. And today I believe it's Labor Day. So when this happens, it can be very powerful time. It can be a very powerful time for us to create. And it doesn't have to be taking action and busy work. Creating things that bring us joy, following our bliss. And sometimes when that anxiety can come up, it can also be because we're not creating. So I did see that happen a lot in the collective. For those of you watching this that have done the work, so to speak, we're meditating and moving with the body and eating the appropriate foods and doing things that feed our soul and our heart and following our bliss, it can be easier to balance and harmonize with these energies. And I want to talk about that in a minute, because that's not always the case, even if we are doing the work, and I'll go there. But for those that are doing some of the work, or maybe haven't really done any of the work at all, just because you haven't done the work doesn't mean that any of this applies. Some people just automatically go through this and they're just in a space of neutrality and they never experience any of the things that I'm sharing in this video. But obviously, that's a different type of person, and they might be going through something completely unknown and unbeknownst to me and what I've experienced. I'm only sharing what I've gone through and what I experience in these influxes. And what happens is we can have this anxiousness come up because we are being pulled to do something. We're being pulled to take creative action and expression. The important thing is this can heighten our cortisol. So that's why I always talk about it is important to do the work, because we might get triggered And it could just happen all of a sudden. And we think, well, I've been doing everything right. How come I'm feeling this anxiousness or this feeling of unrest or incompleteness? And I just have to share that it's part of the human experience. It's just something that I think many of us go through from time to time. Sometimes we feel stuck, and sometimes we feel like we have all this energy that we don't know what to do with. And it always comes back to finding that balance and getting back into the heart, finding that neutrality, feeding that creativity with something positive, or allowing ourselves to feel stuck and just relax and let go and integrate. So what happens is, I've compared this in the past to gas bubbles. So it's a beautiful thing when we get all of this influx of energy, because we're being upgraded from one perspective. We're getting assistance. Everything else is upgrading as we are upgrading. But what happens is, when we vibrate at that higher frequency, or when we feel that lift off, anything that's bound to us, that we're bound to, that's stuck to us, those particles, those shadows, whether they be emotional, worries, self-doubt, anger, frustration, fear, judgment, and I say that all when it's viewed from something that needs to be integrated, released, removed, realized, acknowledged, versus that higher expansive feeling. Anything that isn't in that space will tend to show up, will tend to be highlighted, will tend to be felt more. It's almost like, from my perspective, I have to be more aware, because sometimes we can get really excited about all of it and not integrate and process some of the things that are being shown to us, or that are like, hey, I'm over here, you haven't quite digested me yet, so you're going to get a really big gas bubble. And when you burp, all of that energy is going to be like, oh, I feel so much better. Right? So that's kind of what happens. It shows up and it's like, ooh, I didn't know that was there. So if that's happening for us, that might consider ourselves as light workers, way showers, healers, and intuitives, empaths that use that as a skill set, not out of control, just getting sucked into everybody else's emotions. And that's a whole other video. Then imagine, and we're experiencing this and realizing that things are coming up for us. We might feel like crying for no reason. Cry, let it out. It's okay, right? We're aware of that. But for those that aren't aware of that, can you imagine? And I can imagine, because I've been there, done that, right? And so it can be very challenging for those individuals, or that collective of people who are just like, wow, what is going on, right? All of the stuff that they don't like, that they feel restricted about, that they're angry about, that's been suppressed, is like really obvious. And maybe it isn't even really obvious, but they might just be feeling all of that and not know why, right? Or it keeps showing up for them over and over again, and they go, why me? Why is this happening? They don't understand. And that's where many of us come into the picture, not even necessarily to assist them with healing or to be a shoulder to cry on, but sometimes it's just to hold space for that particular individual, for that particular collective, and just hold space in general with each other, so that it can help ease some of that pressure and help to balance and harmonize with the energies and frequencies that are assisting us, even though it may not feel that way when we're in it or when we're going through it. So that's what's been going on from my perspective the last few weeks. I used to talk about, it's a heart activation, or it was a sacral activation, or it was a pineal activation. And I do feel that that was definitely there this week, but I feel that it's everything. I've kind of let go of this tying down a label to a particular activation. Although when I do light language, I can feel certain things happen for certain people. So I recognize that that was probably a little bit more energetically toned into and tuned into, let's say, the solar plexus. But from my perspective, the last 3 weeks, it's been everything. We experienced the violet energy about 3 weeks ago, a lot of purple, a lot of violet. We had a lot of the emerald frequencies this week and last week, which is heart. That ability to find bliss, right? We experienced a lot of solar plexus activations with the gas bubbles in the stomach and the willpower, and recognizing that we are being guided not to assert our will onto somebody else, yet speak our truth at the same time. I had some sapphire frequencies a few weeks back that were very apparent, which to me is all of these things. And also the sacral. There was a lot going on with the divine feminine in the last few weeks, a lot of kundalini and a lot of creative expression that many felt in their pelvic area. And so again, physical also represents that more expansive network beyond the physical body. As above, so below, as within, so without. And so this has also been going on in the earth, because the earth is a body, right? Part of a body, has a body. So that's a whole other video. So there's been a lot going on, and we're in it. It's a constant shift and part of this expansion cycle. So I had a lot of things come up with people energetically that were frustrated about you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. So I wanted to touch on that briefly. Part of that is ego, and part of that is, again, willpower, asserting our will over somebody else's. Sometimes we can be triggered. We give somebody wonderful suggestions that would be a huge solution or part of their solution, and they don't listen, they don't see it. And one thing I would like to share, that's something as a healer we have to let go of, that attachment to an outcome, right? And recognize that it's their journey, and we can offer breadcrumbs and space, hold that space, but it's everybody else's choice to ascertain or to create what they will. And if we're forcing someone else to do it and we're getting angry with them, frustrated with their choices and inability to see, or lack of lots of things. Lack of the desire to change, lack of willpower, whatever it might be. That's on us. Yes, of course, it's on them as well, because if they are not going to make an effort, then the likelihood of them shifting and changing and doing what they need to do in their life in order to create a beautiful harmonic space may not ever happen. But on the flip side, it's also important for us to recognize that we don't want to step on somebody else's journey either. I mean, sometimes we want to. Our ego wants to. And we want to say, wake up! That person's lying. This person is being honest. Can't you see the difference? But no, that's their journey. And it may take them feeling at the end, when they find out that particular person is lying, they may need to see it for themselves, and they may need to experience, unfortunately, at their own, what we might consider, from a broader perspective, harder. It's going to be harder on them if they don't listen or do the work. That is still their choice, and we are living in a freedom of choice planet, right? For the most part. So I wanted to share that because I do see a lot of frustration going on in the light worker community, and I experience it from time to time as well. I experience it particularly with people that I care about, that I know have this amazing potential. Because if you have clairvoyance or claircognizance or you're clairaudient and those things are open for you, we're able to tap in and see the potential in someone else. But getting them to see it, feel it, understand it, know it can be challenging, and that isn't necessarily our job. We are here to, from my perspective, my intention is to offer space, to provide healing energy that somebody can choose to or choose not to accept or connect with or feel into, whatever words we want to attach to that. So part of this is letting go of our attachment to an outcome. And that's a whole other video. I think I've talked about that before in great detail. What else? I want to talk a little bit about a lot of this. Well, I'll do this separate. I want to talk a little bit about karma, and then I'm going to end on this note, and I'll do another video about some of the fables and stories that we've been told as children and what they represent. So from my perspective, a lot of this, in fact, I'm going to end on that note. And I'm going to do a separate video. And I'm going to talk in that video about karma. So, or how much time do I have? I'm a little indecisive today. Maybe I'll continue. Hey, by the way, sometimes when these energies come in, it is hard to linearize. It's hard to stay in this fashion. I just kind of have to roll with it sometimes. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about karma. I won't leave you hanging. Not that you were. When we're in a space of neutrality and we're able to allow these energies to essentially run their course through our body, course through our veins, when we're able to find a space of love and gratitude, doesn't mean high and it doesn't mean low. It just means holding space in peaceful compassion, whatever. We want to label it with all those beautiful words. It's neutrality. There is a space where we are being invited to see that if we are operating from that, we are then no longer creating karma. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And okay, I'll do a video specifically on this, but to add to that and then end on this note. So if time does not exist, and truly we are capable of changing our past, our present, our future because of being in the now moment and operating from what we might refer to as 0 point, then would it be possible that at that space, and if we hold that pattern, we might also be dissolving karma? Because we're creating from that space of neutrality. What we have done then is no longer relevant to who we are because we have outgrown it, so to speak. Or we are making choices. And by the way, this is only from my perspective. I'm not necessarily being literal because I do understand a lot of people are very tied with karmic beliefs, or not beliefs about karma is what I'm trying to say. So I just am throwing that out there for a little food for thought, because this is how I perceive it. I perceive that when we're in a space of love and compassion and 0 point neutrality, we are creating. In that moment, we're the creator. We are the masters of our reality, and we are creating from that space. Therefore, karma does not exist. So the more often we can be in that space and the more often we can allow, no pressure. Because as a human, this fluctuates, right? Especially as we're going through this, it becomes more of a common theme and ability to just be when we practice being in that space, when we allow ourselves to just let go and be like, hey, I'm at peace right now. And then we make choices that are in that energy. And those choices therefore affect our past, present, and future. So I'm going to end on that note just to play with that a little bit. And I'm going to do another video, maybe my next video or two, about some of my views on my perspective from my higher guidance team about karma. And I wanted to answer one question. I'll answer a few questions also about some of the galactic information that's been coming in, and we'll go from there. So in love and light, guys, thank you so much for your patience and just tuning in to watch these videos, and much love.